I'm not going to waste your time. Here's how you actually reinvent yourself in 2025. Number one, you define yourself. Define who you want to be. Because if you haven't done this yet, if you haven't really thought about like, okay, what type of person do I actually want to be? This will be the most important thing that you do in this year because it gives you something to aim at. Like, how could you reinvent yourself if you don't even know who you want to be? How could you reinvent yourself if you don't even know who you want to be? So it's point number one. You have to define who you actually want to be, and think of like the characteristics that you admire in other people, and don't forget the things that you would already admire about yourself, and then put that all together, and then you're like, okay, this is the type of person I want to be. And of course, you're never going to be perfect. You're never going to be exactly this type of person, but it gives you something to aim towards, and you'll start to feel really meaningful progress once you start making decisions that are more aligned with the person you want to be. You'll start to feel proud of yourself because that's your best strategy. Your best strategy in life is just to like really have an aim of who you want to be and then making progress towards it, because you can't hit a target that you don't know where it is. If you had a blindfold on, it'd be a lot harder to like hit a target, right? Let's say you were like, I don't know, throwing darts, right? And you had a blindfold on. It'd be a lot harder to hit the target, right? But if you knew where the dartboard was, it'd be a lot easier to throw the darts at it. Yeah, of course, you're never gonna hit all bullseyes, but you'll be a lot closer if you know where the dartboard is. And that's what it's like to define yourself. It's like that will really give you something to aim at. Like, I can't stress this enough. You need to have something to aim at. For you to reinvent yourself, you need to know where you are aiming. So once you define yourself, right, the next step is to acknowledge that it's never going to be perfect, because a lot of people, they get discouraged by this. They're like, oh man, like I didn't live up to my like perfect ideal version. Of course you didn't. No one does, because it's impossible to be perfect, but you can't let that stop you from progressing, because you'll look back at your life and be like, oh man, I wasted so much time. You'll look back with regret if you don't even define, if you don't even like try and aim towards something. So it's like, you still have to define it, even though we won't hit it, even though we won't be perfect. You still have to define it, because you need to know what direction you're going. Like, you can't live life just aimlessly wandering around, because then you'll look back and be like, man, I didn't make any progress. Like, if you were like trying to get to a destination, right? And like one way to get there is like to put in your GPS, right? So you know where you're going. But if you just never put in your GPS and you're like, oh, I'll just drive around until I get there, it's like you'll never get there, because you'll be driving around in circles, right? And you also can't beat yourself up because you're like because you didn't get to the destination immediately. Of course, it'll take time to make progress. So first, define who you want to be. Secondly, understand that it's not going to be perfect. We just want to get as close to it as we can. And like, that's what life is. Like, the journey of life is just trying to become the best version of yourself. Like, that's how I think of life. It's like, what else is the point of this, unless we're not here to just wander around? It's like, no, we want to be some sort of person. We want to make some sort of impact on the world. And the way to do that is by defining it, you know? So like I said, choose the characteristics that you admire in other people, and also don't forget the ones that you admire about yourself. So define who you want to be. That's step one. Step two is to break it down into like what tasks that person would actually take, and break it down to like one area that is life-changing. So of course, there's multiple areas that you'd want to focus on, right? But for now, we just focus on one thing, one area. So maybe it's making YouTube videos, right? That's what it's been for me, right? That's why I posted this many days in a row. It's been like over 30 days in a row. And it becomes part of your routine once you focus on it for a short amount of time, because you don't get overwhelmed if you only have one goal. Like, it's got to be a big goal, but it's like, if you have one goal and it's based on the inputs, you won't get overwhelmed, because you're not trying to do 10 things at once. Like, so many people for their New Year's resolutions, they try and set 10 resolutions and do them all January 1st. It's like, this is why it's not working out. It's because you can't pick 10 different things to do all at once. Try and pick as few things as you possibly can and focus your energy on them for as much time as you can. That's how you actually accomplish goals, right? So pick one thing, and it's got to be something that's actually motivating to you, that's actually kind of life-changing. Like, making videos can change your life. Getting in shape can change your life. So it's like, focus on one thing and be like, okay, this is my goal for the next 30 days. One goal, 30 days. Because it takes about 21 days to build a habit, right? But if you have like that extra 9 days, and I think 30 days just sounds better. So you'll be able to build it as a habit. And you also, once it's a habit, it becomes part of your routine. And once it becomes part of your routine, then it can become part of your identity. And when it becomes part of your identity, then things become a lot easier because you start to see yourself as a YouTuber. You start to see yourself as an athlete. You start to see it as like part of who you are. And if it's part of who you are, then you're way less likely to miss a day, to like not record the video, to not go to the gym, to not focus on whatever skill it is. It could be anything. It could be writing poetry. I don't know. Whatever it is that it's part of like the best version you want to be, like make sure you're focusing on what those key areas are that person would focus on. And maybe it's recording videos, like I said, or maybe it's going to the gym. But you don't want to focus on too many goals at once. This is really important because this is what holds people back every new year. They try and do too many things at once and then they give up when they don't accomplish all of the things. It's like you need to have the humility of being like, okay, I'm just going to focus on one thing. I'm going to focus on the inputs, not the outputs. Here's another thing. A lot of people focus on the outcomes. They're like, I want to have 1,000 subscribers in a month. But it's like, you have to really break that down. Like, okay, what does that look like? For me, I've posted now every day for, like I said, over 30 days. And if my goal was like, just have 1,000 subscribers in a month, then I would have been discouraged because I would be focusing too much on the outcome. But if my goal is to post every day for 30 days, now it's like, it's in my hands, right? It's under my control. Like I can control how many videos I post. I don't control how many subscribers I get directly. I mean, indirectly you do because the more you post and the better quality, the greater your odds are of getting a lot of subscribers. But the inputs are what things I have direct control over. So focus on the things you have direct control over and focus on it for 30 days. So just to summarize, first, reinvent yourself. Second, pick one thing, focus on it for 30 days, and it has to be life-changing and it has to be based on the inputs. So if you do that, then it becomes a lot easier to reinvent yourself. And you have to understand that at first when you're doing this, whatever new habit it is, it'll be uncomfortable because it'll be new, right? If you're reinventing yourself, of course you feel uncomfortable when you're changing because like you lived your life up until this point like not doing this thing. So when you first start, of course it's gonna feel uncomfortable because you haven't done it for like this entire time before it. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't get started. Like now is the time to start because you can't change the past, right? You can't look back and be like, oh man, I wish I started 5 years ago. Sure, but like, yeah, but you didn't. So it's like now you just have to start doing it now because you don't want to look back at your life 5 years from now and be like, man, I wish I started 10 years ago because that'll hurt even more, right? So it's like you just need to get started today because today is the only day that you have control over. And of course it'll be uncomfortable because like I said, you haven't done this up until now. It's like it's a new habit. So at first it becomes uncomfortable. And the reason I say 30 days is because over like week 2, week 3, that's when it starts to not feel uncomfortable. Like the first week or two, 100%, you'll feel like, man, I can't speak well on camera, or I'm at the gym and like, I don't even know what these machines do. Of course you'll feel uncomfortable. It's a new situation, but that also means it's a new opportunity for growth. Like if you feel uncomfortable, it kind of means that you may be in a position for growth because you're outside of your comfort zone, right? You've heard this. You need to get outside of your comfort zone. And if you get outside of your comfort zone, guess what it's going to feel? Uncomfortable, right? So it's like at first it'll feel like that, but over time it becomes easier and easier. And eventually you start to get into like a flow state when you're recording videos or doing a workout. And that's when it becomes really fun. That's when it becomes like you don't even notice time is passing and you feel like, man, I'm like in the zone. Like have you ever heard athletes talk about this? Like they're in the zone. That's what it feels like. It's like a meaningful like feeling. It's a meaningful feeling, and you feel like, man, this is just something that I'm meant to do. And you'll feel like that after you get the uncomfortable feeling, and if it's something that's aligned with the person you truly want to be. Because if it's aligned with who you truly want to be, then it really increases the chances that you feel like you're in a flow state. I think like this is kind of like spiritual, but I think that's what like a flow state indicates. It's like it means like you're at the right place at the right time. It feels like time is passing by. You're not really thinking that much. You're just like acting. You know, have you ever been playing basketball and you're like drilling every shot and you're just like, man, I'm just in the zone right now. It just feels like you're in the right place at the right time. It feels like, man, I'm so invested in this one activity that I don't really care about what's going on in the world right now. I'm just focusing on this one thing that I'm doing. And I think that's where like the most meaningful parts of life are, is when you're feeling like you're in a flow state, when it feels like this is just so true to what you want to do. And I think that if you do those three things, you One, define who you want to be. Two, you focus on one habit for at least 30 days. And three, you don't give up when it feels uncomfortable. If you do those three things, you'll start to see real progress immediately in terms of like the person you want to be. You'll start to see real progress in terms of reinventing yourself. And then you can build on the habits after that. Once, let's say recording videos or going to the gym, once you're like, okay, no, I got this, then you can build on top of it. And you've proven to yourself that you can build habits. I can't stress this enough. You need to also prove to yourself that you're capable of building habits. So if you focus on one thing for 30 days, you can prove to yourself, okay, like I did this for making videos, I could do this for going to the gym or running or whatever it is you want to do next. So prove it to yourself by just focusing on one thing. But yeah, it's not gonna be easy. It's not gonna be easy to reinvent yourself. It's not gonna be easy to start the new habit and do it for 30 days. And of course it'll feel uncomfortable. So it won't be easy, but it will be worth it. Life's not easy, but it's worth it. Take care.